All right. Once more, we'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us. Today we have 3 live sessions and 2 more recorded ones that we're going to post for you to watch at your convenience. We thought this would make a little more sense since everyone has such busy schedules. And we will record and put these sessions up as well, so you can view later if you need to pick up some notes or share with somebody in your team. So this is a twice yearly summit that we do, the HX Leaders Network Summit. And we do these, I invite people that I think represent really great examples of doing employee experience, or as we like to say, the human experience of work. And today we have, and on our roster, we have 2 heads of EX, one who's regional, one who's a global head, that's Martijn. We have Patrick, who is, I'll introduce in just a second. We have a really fascinating presentation from Steelcase, which is Noga Lasser, that you'll hear from in the next hour. And she's going to share some research about office design post-pandemic. And we had somebody from her team a couple of years ago in the middle of the pandemic, and we thought it was so fascinating. We had so many comments on it. We thought we'd bring somebody back to see their latest research. And then in the third hour, I will share also some research and some case studies with you. And we'll post later today the other 2 sessions that you can view with Martijn and with Nayara. So I want to get started with Patrick. We've got a lot to talk about. And Patrick is somebody that I've known for what now, 5 years, Patrick? Been a while.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And Patrick is one of the most experienced people analytics people that you will find anywhere in the world. He's been doing this for at least 10 years and has a really fantastic team there at ABN AMRO. And what I like so much about their work is that they're really joined up well with their employee experience efforts there, and they've developed a listening strategy. So Patrick is going to share with us today how they do their listening strategy in a couple of cases that they have, some actual examples. So I hope you find this as interesting as I have and others have. But there's a whole field around analytics and data that is so critical and great for employee experience for HX. So we've got Patrick here today to talk about that. So with that, Patrick, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I think it has been longer even than 5 years.
Could be.
I think it was at Beyond HR some time long ago in Amsterdam.
That's right.
But hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I will be talking about, oh, there's some interference.
We already had so many workshops for dinner. So I was so refreshed, so I was not in any of things.
Can you mute
just joining the dinner, which is nice.
Okay.
Like
I think
Maya
we
was talking. Sorry for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Coolen. I'm heading the HR Analytics department within ABN AMRO. And what I will be talking about today is maybe 2 things. Our journey in people analytics, some of the foundations, and 2 specific use cases, of which definitely one very much related to the continuous employee listening and employee experience, if you will. So definitely related to EX, but from a people analytics perspective. So I also hope you appreciate some of the best practices that I share on people analytics, because I think you can use all the techniques we have to measure employee experience and to boost EX within your organization. I am totally fine, Elliot, if people ask questions in between. I can't see the chat, so if somebody has a question, maybe best is to put them in the chat so Elliot can pick it up, and maybe at some points I will ask, are there any questions? So it's okay for me to have an interactive session, and we have a 10-minute Q&A anyway at the end of my presentation. I think it will take 45 to 50 minutes, I guess, everything together. All right. You can all see the screen, I hope. Maybe a nudge from Elliot. You see my slides.
Yes, Patrick, we can see it. Thanks so much.
Perfect. So let's go to the first one. So maybe a little bit about our mission. Why do we think people analytics is important, and what is the goal actually of people analytics within our organization? And we always use two kind of mission statements, or two parts of a mission statement. And the first is we want to develop a more fact-based or evidence-based HR culture, if you will. So we're definitely not in the hardcore group that says data analytics defines every decision you make, but we do think that people should learn how to look at data, appreciate data, and also discard data if it's not the right pivot table, graph, or table in their decision making. So we say decision making is kind of intuition plus experience plus data analytics. If you leave the data analytics out, you're also missing out. And I hope to convince you in the rest of the presentation. And it's about creating insights to improve decision making. And insights are not only for the organization, for the good of the organization, but also for employees. So maybe employee well-being can very well be a target of our people analytic practices. So that's a little bit about our mission. We want to work on the culture and we want to work on decision making. Another remark you hear a lot about people analytics is that it's 180 degrees changing your view on a project or your target operating model. I want to tune that down a little bit. I think in every research we do, we find new stuff, but it's all about tweaking your decision making, improving your decision making. So it's not per se that radical statement that you sometimes hear within people analytics that is really changing your game you're playing within the company. Am I reading those comments at the bottom correctly that you only see my first slide?
This is correct, yeah.
Let me check.
We were just not sure if you were moving the slides or if
I was on my second slide, yes.
Okay, so at least that's fine.
You see this?
Not yet.
Now out of presentation mode.
No, it's still showing the first slide, the title.
Yes, and if I switch this, can you see this?
Yes.
I'll do it out of presentation zone, otherwise probably with Zoom, something's not working. So this is the slide I was talking about a minute ago.
Okay, thanks.
And apologies, you see a little bit of the PowerPoint environment. So a little bit about our services. If it's correct, you see this slide now on services, just checking a final time. Are you?
Yes.
Yes, I see thumbs up. Okay.
Thanks.
So what does the team do? We are doing several things, and I think the red thread here and the main topic is they all contribute to this evidence-based HR culture and decision making, if you will. So my team is 12 people, and we're doing strategic workforce management. I will not so much talk about it today, but it is about the question, is your workforce still fit for purpose or for your strategy of your business or business line? And then you have a gap analysis. What do you need in the future? What do you have today? And you can start thinking about designing interventions on recruitment, learning, or whatever you think is suitable. So it's the gap analysis on your workforce. People analytics, I will be talking about it today much more, but it's about using advanced analytics techniques like statistics and machine learning to support your decision making. We do a lot on survey management, which is also very much related to listening to your employees. We have an annual survey. I guess most of you have a engagement survey or employee satisfaction survey once a year, full survey, probably. And we inherited that full survey 2.5 years ago and now transformed our survey calendar to a much more diverse and modular approach. So we do have still our engagement survey once a year, but we also have a lot of what we call pulse surveys. which are sample-based, because we try to avoid survey fatigue. And these pulse surveys are either related to hybrid working or what people think about remuneration, benefits, or employee experience. And I will use, in my case, one of those surveys as a source of one of the research we did. We also work on HR dashboards. We build them in Power BI. It's not the only BI tool, but it's the tool that we're using within ABN AMRO. And we're supporting a lot of our, what we call HR process owners, so responsible for succession management, diversity, recruitment, or what you have within HR. And they can base their decisions on key metrics for their topic by looking at those dashboards. And we also support our HR business lines, of course, and business managers, looking at specific dynamics that are happening within a business line. We are thinking about productizing organizational design. I talked to Martijn, one of the other speakers, I think a year and a half ago, on organizational design as well, which is more dealing with what is your span of control, what are the levels in your organization, and how can we build the most effective organizational unit with a strategy in mind. But it's still in an early phase, but we're thinking about it. And we do a lot about capability building. So how do we help people interpret their data? How do they start using our products like you see them listed here on this slide? So it's a combination of various things. We also had a workshop with the interactive use case. We had the fact-based escape room. I will send a link afterwards via Elliot, where you can see a sort of a teaser for the fact-based escape room. That's also a cool thing to do, which helps you feel in the game what it is to, well, apply critical thinking to all the sources of information you have on your table and to make the right decision within 45 minutes in this escape room. So we do multiple things, but we definitely, I always leave it up here, capability building, because I think it's an important thing to do. And you have to keep on doing it because the organization is changing, people leave and people join. So it's never finished, actually, capability building on using data. All right, I will skip this one. This is a little bit our journey, so I hope to give you a flavor. I will pick out some of the bullets here, but gives you a flavor of how the department evolved. And we started with 2 FTE, well, now 12 FTE on your right, and we very much focused on the advanced analytics part in the beginning. So the statistics and a little bit machine learning in the beginning, because we wanted to have that steep learning curve on advanced analytics. So we deliberately didn't include, for instance, the dashboarding part, where we are now responsible for, but not in the beginning, because we want to concentrate on the modeling part of advanced analytics. And we immediately went for business opportunities. So an example, how can workforce data help our business drive external client satisfaction or sales or growth in customers? Or how can HR data help our business within call centers to decrease average handling time and the quality of the calls? So for us, people analytics was never about HR, but always about the specific business problems that there are always within a specific organization. And we deliberately went for those business opportunities in the beginning to create a very clear win-win for our business colleagues. In the beginning, we worked with Diagnostics, which is an analytical vendor. They did the number crunching, but as we went along in time, we hired our own data scientists to do the modeling and statistics and machine learning. We onboarded the different services in the years that I just showed you on the previous slide. So workforce management, survey management, and you see them all there mentioned. And I think for us now, the biggest challenge at this point is not so much to do advanced analytics, and I will give you 2 examples in a minute, but to, we call it, bring the intelligence we have from our models to production. So for instance, vacancy recommendations to our employees. How can we do that in a smart way by using unstructured data, structurizing it, and giving recommendations to our employees? So it's more about continuous analytics, bringing our insights into functionality in our systems. That's the next wave we're on. Any questions so far? Just
No, not
checking.
so far. Let me just
All
ask
right.
I haven't had any written, anyone want to post a question at this point?
And if not,
I guess not.
I will continue. So here you have a flavor of the different data attributes that we are using. It's not limited to those attributes that you see on the slides, but it gives you an example. So we use individual data, skill data, competency data, but also engagement data. On what topics are people more or less engaged, experience data, job tenure data. Well, you see them all on your left side. They're on individual basis. Now, what we also do, we constructed a lot of team and organizational data. So are you part of a team where people move in and move out very frequently? Or are you part of a team with a high average engagement? And in our experience, this team dynamics often explain more towards our business goals, like satisfaction of our clients, etc., than the individual characteristics. So this is something I always make explicit when I give a presentation. Team and organization data on those levels are also very important. And on the right bottom, you see that we have a lot of data coming from the employee cycle, if you will. So from talent acquisition, onboarding towards learning, and in the end, exiting the organization. We have a lot of data coming from that cycle as well. But we all use it to explain the left bottom, product sold, net growth, so the real strategic KPIs that some of our business units have. I always ask, do I miss any data? But not sure if you have any thoughts, but if you do, just let me know, because there's also a little bit of creativity here. Sometimes you miss out some of the multiple applications you have within an HR landscape. So I'm always keen to learn what else we can use. But this is generically what we have in a sort of a data lake, and that we can use with every business case we have. Then before I dive into the 2 cases, a little bit about business questions and algorithms. It is about business questions. So sometimes when you hear talks about people analytics, which ironically I'm also doing on this slide, is do a lot of name dropping and mention different techniques like topic detection, decision tree, which are on this slide as an example. But I hope you recognize in the questions with the bullets that these questions are kind of normal questions to have, that your business can ask yourself, right? So is there a difference between productivity between departments? Or can we predict turnover? Or what do employees talk about? Or can we classify our management in terms of leadership styles? And what does that do with engagement of our employee? All normal, relevant questions that lead you to a specific algorithm, but the data scientist or the vendor can help you with that. So not everybody has to be a data scientist, of course, to do people analytics. You need a lot of more people, like the translator, who really pinpoints on that business question and tries to translate it into an analytical question, and then the data scientist can take over. So again, the point of this slide is to emphasize that the business questions lead your whole investigation and determines what means like an algorithm you use. Is there any experience in the group on people analytics and using the advanced analytics just as a quick shout out maybe in the comments. Just a simple yes or no. Are you using people analytics in terms of advanced analytics, statistics, and machine learning? Just type in a yes or no in the chat. I can check.
Power BI.
Nope, no. Not advanced, only Power BI. Okay. Yeah, Power BI is what we would label as a descriptive usage of data. So you're telling people, okay, this is what you see right now. These are maybe some trends and historical trends and breakdowns. And questions with people analytics you typically can answer is, why are things happening and what if? What if I infuse my workforce with skill A, B, or C? What happens with customer satisfaction? And those are really interesting questions to ask, because how would you else know on which skill you should invest on, right? It's about also maybe debunking some of the assumptions we all have as a human being on which skills to use. Or is a 2 million investment in leadership skills effective or not? Those are simple questions which you can pretty okay answer by using some of the more advanced techniques. So it's not better than descriptive like Power BI or anything else. It helps you answer a different question. And depending on the question you have, you apply some of the techniques.
So Patrick, we do have Jane Rokshaw, who says they have a business insights and people analytics team.
Yeah. And he doesn't know,
Jane,
what to do without them.
Jane, what company is that, please?
At Dentsu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I work really closely with that. So I lead employee experience, but work really closely with that team and to determine the employee experience strategy, essentially.
Excellent.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Yeah, I think if you look at the diffusion of people analytics teams within organizations, I think only 8 years ago it was maybe 5 to 10% where people used advanced analytics, and it's really increasing. Like research based on coming from Bersin, for instance, or Deloitte, are now talking about 30–40%. But it's always difficult to see what they are really doing. Are they doing the descriptive part, or are they doing the advanced part? And again, the one is not better than the other, but depending on the question, you need different skills to do the analytics and statistics.
And Patrick,
Right.
Wendy Branch made a comment that a lot of other groups are starting with journey mapping and design thinking, and that it's much a stronger footing, a much stronger start to begin with analytics. Could you maybe comment on advantages of having a strong analytics team to start with if you're building an EX team?
Yes, and I think the whole case I will share in a minute is practically about that.
Okay, great.
So using the tools that we have in the analytical area to understand what people are talking about, and then prioritizing the more important topics for them, and then maybe do high and low mapping and service design and journey mapping, but on those topics that are most important to your organization. So there is a strong relation, I think, to people analytics and what you call journey mapping or service design. But we look at it as a top-down approach, maybe. But we will talk about it in the next few slides. Okay, so I have two cases. The first one I will do a little bit short, and then I will go immediately to the continuous listening, because that's, I think, more of interest to the audience here. But what we are struggling with is our skill data. Skill data that we have is distributed throughout the organization. And it's a relevant topic, skills, because of all the re- and upskilling initiatives that we have. We identified critical skills, but at the same time, in in practice, we have difficulties collecting the skills of individuals and aggregating them on an organizational level to do analytics, even in the descriptive part. And also the skill data we have is very much fragmented or fractured throughout the organization. Different units use different vendors for their assessments, et cetera, et cetera. We did, however, implement a skill self-assessment platform more than almost a year ago. But the onboarding of people using that tool is reasonably slow. So what we did is we created a machine learning based skill profile. And that's something I want to share with you. I don't have any animations because I don't show it to you in presentation mode. So forgive me that I don't take you along step by step in the slides. I will try to, maybe I can try to share it one more time to see if it works. Just to check, do you see a clean slide or the slide I just showed you?
I see structuring skill data.
That's the only thing you see? That's great. All right, then you see the animations coming up right now, correct?
Nope.
Not yet.
No? I hate Zoom.
I'm sorry.
I prefer Teams. No, okay, but this slide you can see, right? That's the whole slide you see now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave it to this. I will not
You're
try it
not-
again.
You're not in presentation mode, if that makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm not in presentation mode. That's the only way to do it apparently for now, but it's okay. So what do we do on the left side? We collect a lot of unstructured data from our employees. So what is the job title they have now? And what are the previous 2 job titles? Did they apply for a vacancy? And what is the vacancy description? What is your job profile at the moment? But it's all unstructured data. It's written down or it's just the name of a job, and we put all that data and additional data that we can find from our employees. So maybe they did a training or they already did a skill assessment. And we collect that data and we use an open source API called MC, which you see here in the middle. Everybody can use it for free. And it uses that unstructured data and it structures everything on an individual level. So it tells you, for instance, in this case, that a person, a data scientist as an example, is good at machine learning, is skillful in Python and various analytical methods, and has a high score on analytical thinking. We translated all those 3,000 skills to our own internal skill framework because we don't want to communicate with our employees in various skill languages, if you will. So we mapped that on our internal skill framework. And we are now finishing our Power BI dashboard where you can see the whole distribution of skills according to this exercise. The big plus is that with a push on the button today, we can see the skill distribution of all our people today. If we're going to wait for everybody to do skill assessments in what's it called? The skill assessment platform, then it will take, I guess, 1 year or 2 years from now to have them all on board. So it's a quicker answer to a very important question in our organization. And it allows us in the future to do things like vacancy recommendations and learning recommendations in a better way. So this is one case where we use machine learning to capture unstructured skill data, structure it, and use it for specific use cases as skill distribution, skill growth in the organization, where are the skills, and advanced use cases like vacancy recommendation and learning recommendation. Any questions on this example before I move on?
So Patrick, we had a question from Dory. She wanted to know, you're also looking at ambient data like Microsoft Office Viva as part of your strategy.
What is ambient data again?
Ambient data like Microsoft Office Viva.
Well, we're not using Viva, but Viva is a sort of a suite where you have a lot of the Office 365 data as well included, and they can do some analytics for you. Well, we already have the analytical capability, and we're using the Graph API. Not sure if you're familiar with that, Dory, but the Graph API allows us to pull out all the Office 365 data, and we can use it ourselves. So I think Microsoft Office Viva is perfectly fine, but for organizations that have a stronger people analytics function in place, you can do all this by yourself as well, and even use the data by using that Graph API.
Yeah.
That's our strategy. Not the only strategy, I guess, but it's how we use the same data as Microsoft Office Viva uses. All right, let's go to the continuous employee listening. Of course, you have to start listening to your employees. That's step one. If you want to know what's on their mind, start listening. And as you can see, there's not a single source or a single trick you can do to understand your employees in your organization. You have to do multiple things to listen. What we are doing is we have an employee experience survey. I will talk about it in a minute. We have employee engagement as the full survey. We have a lot of full surveys. What do people think about remuneration, or what does a specific business line think about specific questions? We also have a employee community where I think 700 volunteers, 700 volunteers join us in more qualitative discussions. And we can ask them, do you like this or that? Or we can have a discussion. This provides us with more context, because analytics and surveys only provide you with some signals, but it doesn't always tell you in what context these signals occur and what should be done about it. So I think the community helps us a lot with deep diving on it. And we have a lot of transactional data. For instance, what questions do people ask at our contact HR center, or what benefits are people using or not using? This all tells us a little bit about how employees feel and act. And depending on the question at hand, we pick from those sources and try to provide an answer to our organization or employees. But once the signaling is done, the listening is done, it's very tempting for a human being to jump to the solution, right? Let's create an app or do something with AI, or I don't know. And we say, no, you have to first dig into the problem very, very thoroughly. So love the problem, if you will. And this is where the normal people analytics starts, I guess, collecting the data, doing some descriptives, putting them in Power BI, doing predictive analytics, and plus doing also service design. So service design helps, again, provide some context like the employee community as well, and allows us to organize focus groups on the problem definition, or do some interviews, and do the same actually in the second diamond of service design to come up with a solution. So the analytic itself is never enough. You need to deep dive and use other techniques, and well, service design is definitely one of the tools or approaches that we are using to come up with a specific solution. Then at the bottom, you see a few of our own solutions that we found. I'm going to pick out the yellow concept, which is a workspace design and implementation program. And we hear in step one, people complain or give suggestions or are happy with specific parts of work design, work floor design. We analyze it, we come up with new solutions, and then we try it. And then we see if those topics that people talk about disappear or stay. And how we do that are the next slides. This is going to be a little bit technical, so don't run away. I'm going to check 28 people. So my goal is to have 28 people at the end of my presentation, but I hope you appreciate it. We have one survey every month to 10% of our organization. We ask them these simple questions. How likely are you to recommend ABN AMRO as a good employer to a friend or family? That's a numerical score. But we also ask them, what is ABN AMRO doing well? We call that the top. What do you think is top about our organization? And what could ABN AMRO do better as an employee? So what is your tip to the organization? And these are open questions. And this was exciting for us because we get thousands of these a month. And I have to admit, we don't read them. So we needed to step up in topic detection, text analytics to recognize what people are talking about, right? So as an example, a person says, my manager does not listen to my ideas. This is a tip, by the way, right? Related to the previous slide. I cannot do the training I want. I would like more diversity in senior management. I have poor development opportunities. Our workload is not okay. This is a lot of information, right? So the first exciting part for us was, are people really putting effort in typing in suggestions, tips, or tops? And we were very much satisfied with that. But the next problem is, okay, this is not one thing. So we need to separate the different units of information that people provide us. And now the animation goes wrong, but you have to believe me that I'm saying that I had a beautiful animation moving all these sentences apart and putting them on one side on the left. And it looks a little bit like this. But there are 5 things this person is talking about, right? So we separate them by comma and other separators and lists, and with some other intelligence, we have some routines for that. And what we also do is make everything simple for the computer to understand. So manager with a capital and a lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, we always use a lowercase. Senior management, which was an abbreviation for it, we write it in full words, right? Plural versus singular, it's all solved because the computer shouldn't think manager with an uppercase or lowercase are 2 different things. So this is all data transformation. And the last step in data transformation is translating those sentences to numbers, because characters are more difficult for a computer or algorithm to understand and to work with than numbers. And we are using 2 routines. It's called word to vec. We don't understand what is happening when they translate it to to numbers, but you should see it as a sort of a fingerprint of a sentence. So you create a fingerprint based on numbers, and if a new sentence come in, you can compare if these fingerprints are close to each other or not. And a TF-IDF is like a sort of a word count, but a little bit more intelligent. So what do we do with that? We have a training data set. In machine learning, you always create a training data set. You did a little bit with a computer and a little bit of yourself. So we said, my manager never listens, my manager is not interested in me. That belongs to the topic of manager quality, right? And we translated that to numbers. A new question, or sorry, a new sentence come in, my manager does not listen to me, like in the example 2 slides ago. We also translate that. And then in our case, with a support vector machine model, we find the best match. So we didn't read anything until this point, but our algorithms are capable of putting a new sentence in the right topic. And we have 130 of them, 130, with 90% precision. And that is analytical wise very good, but still 10% is wrong. But happily, that happens only in the smaller topics, on the smaller topics people talk about. So this gives you a little bit of a flavor. I hope it's not too technical. How many people left? Oh, 1 joined. That's good. So I gained 1. It hopes to give you a flavor that in this case, text analytics and topic detection algorithms can actually understand people to a certain extent and help you, efficiently listening to your employees. And based on this type of data, and I will show you a screenshot in a minute from our Power BI dashboard, people start talking about, okay, but is this topic really growing in the last quarters? Is it important to our strategy? Should we deep dive on it? And then you see projects starting related to service design, right? I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go to this screenshot, also looking at the time. It's a little bit small maybe, but you see this. Oh, I can actually enhance it now. That's the good thing, not being in promotion in the presentation mode. So yeah, now you see it a little bit better. What you see is are different bubbles, right? And every bubble represents a topic that people talk about. The bigger the bubble, more people talk about it. The higher the bubble in the Power BI dashboard, more people give tops than tips. So you see a baseline here, a horizontal line, everything below, all those topics have netto more tips than tops. So people have more suggestions or complaints about those topics than when you are positioned above that line. Bubbles more to the right have an average high score on the numerical question. So are you willing to recommend ABN AMRO as an employer? That was a numerical score. So people who talk about this topic here have a high average score on that question compared to people here. So consequently, you can say, okay, let's look at the bottom part of this visual and maybe a little bit to the bottom left to see where we should concentrate on. So I'm not going to do service design, high and low mapping on all these bubbles. I'm going to do it on specific bubbles, maybe a little bit more concentrated to the left bottom. I can slice and dice on a lot of demographics, but definitely on business line. And I can even slice on what does the data scientist tell us, right? Who is linked to that job title. So there's a lot of opportunities. The other screenshots are actually screenshot based on those deep dives you can do. And this is available for the whole organization. So everybody can see this. We also want to provide some information back to all the employees as well, of course. So this is something everybody can see. And the bubble chart is included with some voiceover in a quarterly meeting on all board -1 management teams. So I'm happy that our organization takes employee experience seriously and addresses it on a quarterly basis in their management teams. And it also provides a lot of product owners in HR to deep dive in this Power BI dashboard and to search on comments to see if anything is said about a platform or a new policy or whatever. They can also use it to improve their services to the organization. Any questions on this case, which was my last case?
We do have a question coming in from Jeff Higgins asking how long it took to build your internal text analytics and capabilities, text analytics capabilities, Patrick.
I think it took us a few months to understand the technique behind it. We had help from Andrew Merritt, who is a high appreciated thought leader on topic detection. So he taught our team actually to do this, and we let it be peer reviewed by a few other organizations who are working on this as well. And with machine learning, you learn every time you run your model, right? So it is about improving every time. It doesn't need to be perfect. But I would say it took us a few months, say 3 to 4 months before we were operational. And from there, we learned every run that we did it again and again and improved the precision rate. I think we started with a precision rate of 82%, and now we're plus 90% with precision rate. And that's because of the learning. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Any other questions on this one? And otherwise, we can go to the generic Q&A. Maybe I have one more slide. We share a lot and we learn a lot by sharing. So I do that on LinkedIn, for instance. You can see some of the posts that you see visualized on the right. Feel free to read them. The only thing is I want to like if you read them. Not only if you like it, actually. We're a member of Inside 222, which is a peer-based organization. We share and learn a lot. And as you can see in the middle, we have a cooperation now with HX Transformer and WISE on two specific things. And it's a little bit of marketing. I hope you don't hold it against me, but we are now working on two people analytic courses because they very much relate to me. A lot of organizations come to ABN AMRO and ask me two questions. One, what is the phenomenon of people analytics? What are the examples and how could I apply it with a specific example in my organization? And two is, okay, if we want to take this seriously, how am I going to build maturity in the people analytics function? And those are exactly the two courses that I and Sjoerd van den Heuvel, who is coming from an academic background, will support and provide in the next year. And if you want any more additional information on that, I refer to Elliot, who can give you more information on the dates, etc. And that ends my presentation. And I think we have 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, Elliot, if that's okay?
Yes, correct. We've got a question from Kevin Graulis, who says, do you also use analytics to measure the effectiveness of the implemented EX solutions in your organization?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes, if we can. So for instance, we measure the effectiveness of a large leadership program. I already mentioned, I think, in the presentation. And also we measure the effectiveness of a program that the goal of that program was to improve external client satisfaction. So people are all sales related people with client focus. And what we learned is that of the 15 modules in that learning track, there were a few that were only successful for specific personas. So it helped us to tweak that program and to exclude some modules and to offer some modules to specific audience to boost, in the end, client satisfaction, not so much the EX part, but the client satisfaction. And that technique, that's called the difference in difference comparison, is also applicable for EX solution or any intervention. But what you need is a little bit of math and control groups. So you need people who are using the EX solution in your question and people who don't use it. And then you can use a difference in difference comparison. So the answer is yes, but it's not always possible to do because of the limitations from an analytical perspective. But it's a good question. I think you should always do this for your more strategic or more, well, maybe more costly interventions. It makes perfectly sense to do a study on the effectiveness of that intervention.
Yeah, that is something we'll talk about. We'll share an example in the third hour, so stick around. Okay, we have a question from Joram. Does ABN combine EX with CX, so employee feedback with customer feedback, to impact operational efficiency and impact the bottom line? How do you see the relationship with CX? I know you guys have thought about this a lot.
Yes, well, you can look at EX in relation to CX in two ways. One are people experiencing during their career, right? The whole employee cycle, onboarding, et cetera, and it's only rarely that we see a very strong relationship with the CX part, but that's because if you want to influence CX, you have to talk to the people who are working within that context. So you shouldn't look at the whole organization to explain customer experience within retail, for instance. You really have to find those people who understand and the customer and the internal context of the organization related to that specific group of clients. And there we see that it definitely has a high impact, because the employee experience on how processes work is often much better and much of a higher quality than ironically, if we ask our customers, because they only see the outcomes, right? So you have to include people and their experiences, but not per se. That's the point I'm trying to make on the employee cycle processes, but on the client processes. Does it make sense? So the client processes are very important to include employee experience. Do they have to push a button to that 50 times, or are the systems supportive or not? That's really helping a lot to boost CX as well.
Thanks for the question, Joram. We have time for, I think, one more question. Before we go to that last question, I just want to let you know what's coming up next. We have Noga Lasser, who's joined us from Steelcase, and this is kind of continuing our little fun mini masterclass on EX. And Noga runs 2 design teams, one in Munich, one in Hong Kong. How many of us spend time or understand the whole aspect of physical workspace design and what's going on, how that's been impacted by COVID and remote work and return to the office? Steelcase is one of the oldest companies in modular and different kinds of office designs, and Noga is going to be sharing some research there. I'm kind of a design and architecture geek, so this will be fun for me. And then the third hour, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about analytics as a key capability, along with a couple of other things, because this field is so brand new. It literally came out of EX itself. I mean, or as we call it, HX now, is literally came out of nowhere 4 or 5 years ago. So what's been going on in that space? What capabilities are most needed, and how do you build a team? So we'll be talking about that in the third hour. Time for one more quick question. Anyone? You can unmute your mic or write it in the chat, either way.
Everybody can grab a coffee.
Or you can go grab a coffee and get ready for session 2. All right, maybe I have one question while we're waiting, Patrick. What do you think has been the thing that has helped you the most at ABN AMRO to get senior leadership buy-in, both to employee experience, but also to your analytics work? What's been key there? Because I know you've had a journey.
Well, it is about triggering curiosity, I guess, of our business leaders. I think in some cases we are lucky. Business leaders already ask questions to HR. So that's one reason why people analytics is here. But normally in the beginning, I went into a management team meeting and I asked a simple question. Do you want to know how your workforce competencies, leadership, culture is influencing your business outcomes? And nobody says no to that question. And then I say, okay, I have the budget to do some research on that. Do you think that's useful? And also nobody says no to that question. Yeah. So I do appreciate the fact that I had some budget to start with. But it's all about, how do you know you're making the right decision? And you don't have to do that for every smaller decision you make, but where you think it has a lot of impact in terms of effect on people or costs or benefits.
Yeah,
I think you should do people analytics. And I want to turn it around as a last slogan. And sometimes there's a lot to do about GDPR, and there's a lot of people are careful to do people analytics. Oh, can you do this? Can you research this? I want to turn that around. If you are not doing people analytics as an organization, you should maybe be fined, because you are not doing your utmost as an organization to understand your workforce. So it's basic consultancy, I guess, as an answer to your question, and triggering the curiosity and talking the language of your business leaders.
Great, thank you very much. Well, Patrick, I just want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing that with us. As Patrick mentioned, he's developing a program for us. We're developing a set of programs that are both for different roles within EX or HX, as we call it, and also for applications. So many of you in HR who've been around for a while remember we had for a long time in learning finance for non-financials. So this is analytics for non-analytics people, how to make it understandable, accessible for the rest of us. Patrick and Short are going to teach that class starting in the autumn for us. First one is about what it is, how to increase the capability of analytics, and the second level is about how to use analytics to move the needle and transform the organization. So thanks to Patrick, and thanks to all who have joined us in this session.